Good evening and welcome everyone to this Sunday evening, the third day of the fifth edition of the Lonavala International Film Festival. I'm going in order of the tiles on my screen. So right next to me, I have my dear friend, producer, director, actor, writer and author, Ananth Mahadevan. Below him is RJ, yes, I got it right this time, Divya Solgama. Divya is an encyclopedia, and I must tell all of you, even those of you who are on the screen, yesterday when we started talking after the session was over, we talked another 45 minutes. And I predict that film people, when they come together, will never stop talking about films. It's a great, great bonder. Next to Mr. Divya is Pravesh Sippy, my dear friend, the son of the legend NNCP Productions. And whenever we used to meet, we used to have these great conversations about cinema. And it's just a continuation of these conversations that is happening at LIFFI 2020, which is why it's so interesting for all of you and for us. And next to him is Madhav Todi, the festival director of LIFFI 2020. I want to start with all your permission to tell you in 2 minutes what happened yesterday. So yesterday, after we finished in the night, I actually sat down once again and watched Walk on Thee very carefully. And then back to back at about 3 in the morning, and I completed this afternoon, I saw Gumnam. And I was looking for all the little things that Divya was telling us, and I saw a lot of things. I saw in Walk on Thee, Sadhna's name came before Manoj Kumar's. But I saw in Gumnam that the Kumar went. It was just Nanda and Manoj. I saw Gul and Sippy in Walk on Thee, but in Gumnam that had become G and Sippy. And in Gumnam, I saw the name of a very dear friend, Charandas Shok. Shok Saab, I must tell you, was also the man who wrote the first draft of Raju Ban Gaya Gentleman and is credited as our dialogue writer. And it gave me such a great sense of joy to see a name in the titles of somebody I actually had the pleasure and the privilege of working with. I remember Shok Saab as a very, very gentle human being. And all the other things I saw Naina's name. Yes, I saw Naina's name. And I saw a lot of things. And I must tell all of you people in the audience, in our days, in Mr. Mahadevan's days, in Pravesh's days, we didn't have internet, we didn't have smartphones, we didn't have Google, we didn't have any way of research. I did it the hard way. I went from cinema to cinema to cinema every weekend and learned the posters by heart. Ananth worked for BPS, Bombay Publicity Service, with the veteran VP Sate. And he, only because of his interest, just used to see every poster that came through, and he learned the posters by heart as well. But I must tell you, when you read the titles of movies again and again, those titles are not just words that go or letters that go. They become your friends. So when you see a Yash Chopra film again and again, and you see cameraman Manmohan Singh, you know who he is. You know his signature because you know what he's doing. I remember learning all the credits of every movie by heart. The first time I met Mr. Yash Chopra and we were sitting and talking, I could tell him that KG Saab was the cameraman of Diwar and Trishul. I could tell him that R.D. Burman did the music of Diwar. I could talk to him about these people. For me, they were living real life people, even though I'd never seen them or met them. They were just names in the titles. But when you do that, doors start opening and the universe opens. If you really love cinema, all you have to do is translate that passion into action. Read the titles, watch the movies. This time you guys go to Google, see the old posters. And those of you who want to enter the film industry, I promise you the industry will open doors because your passion will bounce you through right inside. Well, I'm really very grateful that we are having this conversation because the people I'm talking to, Pravesh, Divya, Ananth, are people whose passion maybe exceeds mine. They've been with it and they always will. And that is why we are part of a community that can't be thrown out of the industry. We are the industry, no matter what our age, no matter what we do. We are the people who are the backbone of what we know as Bollywood. I've heard some TV anchors shouting about Bollywood. And I wanted to tell these people, I don't take drugs, I don't smoke, I don't drink. Mr. Mahadevan does neither. He's also a vegetarian to boot. He doesn't, Pravesh either. We are people who helped people, launched people, taught people, trained people. We are the backbone of Bollywood, so don't insult us by saying that, we are drug addicts, we are not, or we are vile, we are not. We are the backbone of an industry that pays the maximum tax to the government. Having said that, God bless, and I'm very proud that we are here today. Today, we move to a great film which I saw the first time at the New Excelsior Cinema, the second time at the Opera House, and it's called Devta. It was remade from a Tamil film, but I distinctly remember shades of a Victor Hugo novel called Les Miserables. And over to Ananth. Ananth remembers the Tamil version. Ananth, Devta.
Yes, we are talking about the glorious 70s, the 70s which gave you Sholay, the 70s which gave you so many memorable films, and the stars of the 70s, right from Rajesh Khanna to Mr. Bachchan to, of course, Sanjeev Kumar, who had a very checkered career. And Devta, yes, as Vivek rightly points out, it was loosely inspired from Victor Hugo's La Miserable. It was written in Tamil originally, and it was a film called Jnanoli, meaning the light of knowledge, wisdom. And it was written by a gentleman called Vietnam Virdu Sundar. Now, Vietnam Virdu was actually a film that was made in Tamil because it was about a family that was fighting amongst each other. So they called it the Vietnam House, because of the war within. So the guy who wrote that became very popular as Vietnam's Suresh Sundar. So he was the person who originally wrote or adapted Devta as, Jnanoli from La Miserable. And there was a tradition in those days, and it was a very interesting tradition that, the thespian Shivaji Ganeshan in Tamil, uh, it was almost an unwritten law that every film that he does in Tamil will be reprised by Sanjeev Kumar in Hindi, because it was like almost he's the only guy, he's the only actor who can match the histrionics of Shivaji Ganeshan and bring about, whether it is Nayadin Nairat, which was Navratri in Tamil, and he did 9 roles, Shivaji Ganeshan, and then it was remade as Nayadin Nairat in Hindi. So was Devta. I mean, Nanoli starred Shivaji Ganeshan, and my first memories of Nanoli was, Shivaji Ganeshan with the, the candlesticks, that pose, which was the poster pose in Devta, also with, Sanjeev Kumar holding that and almost, in rage wanting to hit that on someone's head. So that was the trademark of Nanoli, which was repeated in the posters of Devta. So Devta, again, very interestingly, Shavana Azmi had, I think, just about made her entry into the so-called mainstream cinema, coming from the films of Shyam Benegal, whether it was Ankur or Nishant or, so many others, Mandi and others. So for her, it was, matching up to Sanjeev Kumar's already, versatile appearances in offbeat and commercial cinema. So she had to match up to that, and she had a double role to play in the film. There was another little trivia which I'm not sure. Apparently, Shashi Kapoor had seen Anil Kapoor, the very, very young Anil Kapoor, on stage performing, and he had recommended to Sippy Saab to cast Anil Kapoor as the young boy, the romantic boy opposite Sarika in Devta. But eventually the role went to Rakesh Roshan. So I do not know how true that is. Pravesh, you'll be able to validate that. But I heard this. Of course, Devta was a very big success at the box office. And I was very happy for Sanjeev Kumar, because Sanjeev Kumar always got a raw deal at the box office. He was a great performer, but somehow he never got his deal. I mean, when he was with an ensemble like in Sholay, of course, it turned out to be big hits. But even when he came with Mr. Bachchan in Farrar, somehow it didn't work out for him. Farrar reminds me that Gulzar wrote the script, co-wrote the script for Devta, and of course Panchamda's music. And whether it is Chand Chura Ke Laya Hu or Gul Mohar Gar Tumhara Naam Hota, all these songs have still stayed with us and we still hum them. And yes, I think I'll sort of hand it over to Divya, because I'm sure he must be having.
Yes, because the moment you talked about Panchamdas, both of us were drawn and we were discussing it. I mean, Chand Chura Ke Laya Hoon was a very typical R.D. Burman song. You know, it had I could recognize the signature after the first 3 seconds. But Gul Mohar Gar Tumhara Naam Hota is not a typical R.D. Burman song. The lyrics are typically Gulzar. So Divya, over to the music of Devta to you. And I must tell you, Devta was not, it was a very big hit, but the music never reached where it should have. In the R.D. Burman
Vivek,
period where carry on, Divya.
yeah, the songs are not typical R.D. Burman. They are typical Gulzar, that word Chand or Gulmohar, Chura ke laya hu, Chabana. All these words are like Gulzar Saab's favorite words. But that song, yeah, the moment that song starts, Chand Chura ke laya hu, the start music, you mentioned the 3 seconds, and the way Kishore Kumar starts it, and that slowly goes down and he says, Chand Chura ke, you know that you are ready for a fantastic song. And uske baad bhi again the way she says Kal Bapu Jage, so they had this story going on in that entire song. The way it was shot, that the santur and all those, the violins are playing, and the shot is like Shabana Azmi running through those trees, and that entire effect is super. And when it comes to Gulmohar, I totally agree that it's a most underrated song of R.D. Burman. पब्लिक को अभी भी लोगों को पता नहीं है इस गाने के बारे में, इसका जो जेम है, इतना ब्यूटीफुल सॉन्ग है. बट एक और गाना इस फिल्म में जो मेरा बहुत ही पर्सनल फेवरेट है, व्हिच आई
That's the one that's picturized on Benjamin Gilani and
yes,
Shabana.
and that's like more मैं तो कारे बदरवा से हारी, Lata Mangeshkar singing for Shabana Azmi, and that entire पूरी बिजली कड़क रही है, उसका म्यूजिक, and they both are like making out. वो गाना पंचम के डायहार्ड फैंस भी नहीं सुनते, कोई बात ही नहीं करता उस सॉन्ग के बारे में. Also, there's one more song, and this is a very good platform to talk about it, and that's Jab Ek Kaza Se Guzre To by Mohammad Rafi Saab. The soul of Devta is in that song. And there was this allegation which is given on, like people say that Pancham never used rightly RD to Mohammad Rafi, and he was always biased to Kishore Kumar. तो मैंने ये भी एक देखा है कि in after mid 70s when Mohammad Rafi Saab came back and he started singing Pancham, every film of Pancham had minimum one song of Mohammad Rafi, minimum one song. And यहाँ पे जब एक कज़ा से गुजरो, तो people don't know about this song, just lyrics उसके सुनो. उसमें एक लाइन गुलजार साहब ने डाला था, ईसा का मरियम कोई नहीं. How can you think about that song? इतना प्यारा गाना. And also this combination of S. Ramanathan, R.D. Burman. Again, we always talk of R.D. Burman with Dev Saab, we talk with this one, that one. S. Ramanathan, R.D. Burman, Bombay to Goa, Do Phool, Mahan, and Devta.
Incredible.
And also symbolic, I mean, you talked about the theme, Rafi Saab's theme of the film. Yeah. There was, in those days, there was another so-called cliche of introducing symbols in the film, metaphors in the film. And the metaphor in Devta was, this vulture, was it an eagle chasing a crab? So the eagle is Danny Saab and the crab is Sanjeev Kaur. So it's getting closer and closer and closer. And in the end, he just sort of, grabs it. So that's how the film ends.
That's the whole Victor Hugo angle going through, because Ravla was about this cop and about this man.
Right.
And continuously through the film, it's a cat and mouse game. Right. Pravesh, before I say anything, your father would be proud of the level of conversations about films that he has made 40 years ago.
It's overwhelming. It's overwhelming listening to all of this. So I'm quiet. What I might come up with is fill in on some things. Like Ananth said, maybe I can, he mentioned Shabana had come in. So she made her entry into commercial cinema with Fakira, which was a few years before this film. So my information today, when I'm listening to this heavy duty kind of talk between you three fabulous guys, let me soak it in and enjoy it myself.
Enjoy it.
So I'm going to still hand it over. I might pop in and say, on my front, I grew up. I was 14 with Wokonthi and Gumnam. I was 1 year old and whatever, now I knew what my dad does. I was in Chennai with him, Kovalam Beach. A lot of the shooting was done around there. So it's, you know, it's all there much clearer in my mind as a teenager. I was there and I've seen all of it. I've seen the work happening. This was the time we did a lot of work in Chennai using South Indian directors. You know, Sargam followed, and there were a lot of South Indian actors, writers, directors, remakes. That was happening at that time, and we were really good and strong there. Our lab always was right from the very beginning. Gemini Lab in
Gemini Lab. I saw the
yeah.
name of both the movies yesterday.
Yeah, so you know, so the South connection in many ways was there right from the beginning.
Is that because of the actual efficiency that you got?
Honestly, yes, absolutely. As a producer myself, you know, even I made Aaj Ka Gundaraj with Chiranjeevi there, and all these films that we've done there, they are very professional. 6 a.m. shift, 6 a.m. everybody is there. If the first shot is not taken by 6:40, 6:50, something is wrong, and people start getting edgy. The director or whoever is you know, calling the shots for that morning, the DOP or whatever, they start getting rattled, and they break for lunch at 1 o'clock sharp. 2 o'clock they're back to work, and usually your output by 6 o'clock is a lot more than what we've ever achieved in a place like Bombay, where people don't take a first shot before 11:30, 12, and then 1 o'clock break for lunch, and the real hard work starts at about 3:30, and then you're invariably putting your cost up by going into a 10 p.m. extension, which is all overtime for everybody. So
Mr. Mahadevan is on the set at 6 a.m. every day, no matter what film he's making. I tempt my actors with a great breakfast, and his first shot for a 9 o'clock shift is at 9 o'clock. And I've seen this over the last 4 years, not 1 minute delay. So I just realized, sir, you are a South Indian man yourself. So I think you brought a bit of the South Indian professionalism and efficiency into your work.
But Viveck makes sure that I break at 1 o'clock for lunch. I can't do anything
He
about
does,
it.
and we eat. I mean,
It sits on my
he eats
head.
dal khichdi. My unit and cast, you see, I'm a foodie, so food and films for me go hand in hand, just like with all foodies. But we do good. Divya, I'm going back. Do you think one of the reasons for the Devta music being underwhelmed was because of R.D. Burman's other films just coming back? See, Devta was not a musical.
Yeah.
It was a genre-defining film for those days. You could not slot it as a musical or a comedy or a suspense murder mystery. You couldn't even say it was a family drama. Because in truth, it was purely drama. It was what we would call dramatics of a highest order. And dramatics does not lend to music. So Apna Desh, Parichay, Andhi, a whole bunch of... Ghar, for example, with such a sensitive subject, it was the music that just lifted Ghar into a different zone. Devta, people came for a lot of other reasons. They didn't come for the music. They got it, they were pleasantly surprised, but they came for the histrionics. They came for the drama. They came for the confrontations of giants. You see, by then, Shabana had already got a huge reputation for being a great actress. So did Mr. Rajiv Kumar. So did Danny Saab.
Danny.
And Dr. Sriram Lagu. And Dr. Sriram Lagu.
Dr. Lagu and I suspect, and I should not say this, but I'm saying it, Shabana seeked her boyfriend in Benji, and she was very happy doing it. But she's done it in 2 films. In Khel Khiladi Ka, she got Uday Chandra in as well. But what an actress. I have engendered the film festival I go into immediately after this in December, and I have Shabana on 2 panels, and I'm walking the red carpet with her. So I am actually, she's in Budapest right now. I am overwhelmed by a lady who can get so much done and connects. If she does an Ankur, she connects. She has 4 scenes exactly in an Amar Akbar Anthony, and she connects. Devta was an ideal mix of a great performance in a big commercial film, and she grabbed it. Every scene with Danny, every scene with Sanjeev Kumar, you were sitting like this and watching these people, afraid to breathe because you might miss one word. And how did your father choose? I mean, this was a genre-defying film, Pravesh. How did he choose this?
Like I said yesterday, Dad he went with his gut, his belief, and if he wanted to do something and he put his mind to it, that's exactly what he did. One thing he did, and I learned from him, and he told that to me many times, when we are remaking a film, we're not just remaking it. We have to adapt it to our North Indian audiences. So, I'll go away from Devta because this is reminding me of Sargam, and we're going to be coming back next weekend with Sargam. Um, uh, the Dafli Wale song in the original was the situation was the same. She wants to, accept him in her mind and that he's my man that I'm going to give in to. But in the original South Indian style, she does puja and garlands him head to toe and, all of that like he's Lord. But Dad came up with Dafli Wale, Dafli Baja, and there was a problem with Mr. K. Vishwanath. He was upset about that. But that was what Dad stood by, and Dafli Wale happened, you know. So he just, why did he choose Devta or why did he do a film when he did it? He never went with some trend or he never went with the big star of the day or whatever. He chose to do something and tried to do it honestly and put it all together the way he thought was best for it, and usually succeeded with it.
Fantastic. I would have presumed Devta doing super well in places like Delhi and Bombay. How did it do in the tier 2 and the tier 3 cities?
Everywhere, Calcutta, all our distributors, it was a hit all around, all around,
Incredible.
all around.
And it means that we have audiences that like a certain kind of cinema as well. It's just that we unfortunately indulge ourselves and try to play safe. Ananth, would you?
Yes, the 70s. See, why I mentioned the 70s was you have Amar Akbar Anthony being as big a hit as Andhi. The audiences went for both kind of cinemas. Both
Because both kinds of cinema were given a chance.
Yes, yes, and they got the best of outlets in cinemas, best of distribution, best of publicity, and even though the so-called run-of-the-mill cinema was run down very badly by the critics, whether it was Times of India or Bikram Singh in Filmfare, I've never seen Filmfare giving more than one black round this thing. It has never been two, except for a film like Upahar or something when it went into 3, or Pia Ka Ghar when it went into 3 or something. They never give it, but that never ever affected the audience. They thronged for Amar Akbar Anthony, they thronged for Sargam, and they thronged for Ghar, and they thronged for the offbeat cinema like Milli or all the other Bawarchi.
Rishidas films.
Bawarchi. So the audience was so balanced, and the taste of the audience was so correct. Today it's totally different. I mean, today you want to make a film that's not run of the mill, that's substance and not style. You don't get distributors, you don't get distribution, you don't get the show timings you need. So you are treated, and in spite of we having double or triple the number of cinemas and shows these days. So it's a sad commentary of today's times. So that's why I remember the 70s very fondly, for the music, for the makers, for the actors. And it went into half of the 80s with Ardha Satya and Akrosh. And after mid 80s, we crashed into the 90s and the 2000s. We made the worst cinema, Hindi cinema. I'm sorry.
That was a very bad patch.
Very bad phase. Yeah. So the best phase for me was starting from the early 60s to the end of the 70s. And you had the best cinema in that particular 2 decades.
And it's working because Sippy Saab's best works of that period is actually being showcased by us in this tribute to him. Madhavji, how are we doing for time?
Vivek, we are doing good. You could still continue the discussion for a couple of minutes more.
Because we've talked on so many interesting things, are there any questions that you would like to ask us?
The questions really, there aren't any relevant questions on this, but there have been a lot of compliments that have come to all of you. I will read out, dear all sir, great discussion. So thank you to all the panelists for that. And there's also another comment in terms of the app that we are using to stream. They're saying great app, and they're saying future movie hub for everyone. So obviously people are pretty pleased with this effort that's going on. And
I
then of
got
course there
actually,
are compliments.
I got a compliment myself, because unlike other apps, there is no pixelation, there is no glitch, there is no dragging out of the image. I saw Gumnaam and Wokonthi on Plexigo as well as on Amazon Prime, and it was as good, if not better. So yeah, cool.
I
Yeah,
think
I want to go
Divya ji
back.
wants to say something, so let's just allow him to say first, and then we'll continue. Yes, yes,
Divya.
Divya ji, please.
Divya's frozen on my screen. He'll come back in a
He's
bit.
frozen on mine too.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll just continue quickly with some of the comments that we've got. So people have been generally saying it's a very good film. They've been complimenting the acting of both Sanjeev ji and Danny ji. And Divya ji is back online. Divya ji, yes, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk on Sanjeev Kumar sir. You know, when I
Yeah.
saw first time Devta, I don't think so. हमारे हिंदी सिनेमा में कोई भी ऐसा एक्टर होगा जो एक सीन है जहाँ पे he's wearing a very tight black t-shirt where you can see all the flaps coming out. You know, there's one layer, two layer, three layer, four layers, and still you are not watching there and you're watching this guy's performance. मुझे नहीं लगता है कोई और एक्टर ये कर सकता है. फिल्म हिट भी हो गई थी उस जमाने में.
The
So
only
that
actor who's doing it, the only actor who's doing it these days is Mohanlal in Malayalam.
yeah, of course, it's happening out there. They don't look at the body thing or everything, but out here in Hindi cinema, it's more of 8 packs and all this stuff. You know, for
Absolutely.
me, all these 80% of these new actors, they all look same.
Right.
There's no style, there's no charisma, there's
There is
no
no charisma
personality.
at all. There is no the kind of you use the personality, the persona on screen
Yeah.
that they brought out. That's totally missing in today's actors, so-called
And
heroes. Yeah.
one interesting trivia I would like to share about Sanjeev Kumar and Sarika. You know, they have worked in this film. So they are like, Sanjeev Kumar is playing grandfather to Sarika. Then there was a film, Gra Pravesh, where she was his lover. Then there was a film Katal where she was his wife.
Yeah.
Then there was as a master moped, she was a kid in couple of films like Devi and Satyakam. So that's Sarika and Sanjeev Kumar. You know, people don't talk about them.
Yes, they don't. And even with Jaya Bachchan,
Yeah.
he made his daughter in Parichaya, his daughter-in-law in Sholay, his lover in Anamika, and in Naya Dil Nahi Raat,
Koshish, wife,
Koshish.
of course, she played his wife.
Yeah.
And in Naya Dil Nahi Raat, she just was a foil to all the 9 Sanjeev Kumars
Yeah.
that came out and out and out. We don't do that anymore. We don't have makers, writers. I don't know. One of the reasons the disillusion that has come is that, and maybe it was a trend where people, that video came out, everyone was seeing it at home. The only people who were patronizing cinemas in that period were people from lower classes who would put their feet up and spit. The theaters went into a bad zone. They'd keep the AC off, the seats used to be broken. So obviously you had to make your film more and more lowest common denominator for those people, because suddenly people were watching on video saying, you don't go to the theater. And then, of course, cinema came right all the way back up when the cinema started renovating themselves, when the government lifted the embargo on the ticket rate.
Yeah.
I remember, and this is much before the multiplexes, I remember 1942, A Love Story at the Metro at a 100 rupee ticket. And Nestor said, they're buying tickets, and I'm quite happy to renovate my theater, because if I'm getting that kind of revenue, then I will. Of course, we took it to the other end of the spectrum right now with multiplexes. But you're right.
Can I play something, Vivek?
Yes, of course.
I'd like to play something.
Yes,
Just a
please.
small second thing.
Oh,
So that's Sanjeev Kumar singing in Devta. So just wanted to share that small piece of trivia.
super. I think this has been an outstanding conversation. I don't want to keep on getting into UC, because then we will talk till 7:30. So that's why at every stage I'm holding myself back and asking Madhavji, do we have enough time? Do we have enough time? That kind of stuff. We have 2 minutes more, so I won't go beyond this, but we will continue this conversation next week. We have Sargam, we have Fakira, we have Chor Machai Show, delectably dessert type movies, warm, happy, funny, and lots of memories of those. Madhavji, thank you very much for calling us. I think It was a great pleasure for all of us yesterday. Day before yesterday, we had Anand and Milind. And thank you, Anand, sir. Thank you, Divya. Thank you, Pravesh.
Thank you.
And
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We'll go to the movies now.
we'll go
Right.
to the movies.
Thank
God
you.
bless.